Greetings and welcome to Hot Topics from the Soul. I'm your host, Dr. Valerie Parker Hagan, and I'm delighted to be here. It is February, and we are still celebrating Black History Month. Regrettably, we want to announce the passing of the legendary Reverend Jesse Jackson, who passed away at 84. He was a civil rights leader, and we are excited about the legacy that he has left and how he trailblazed the path of freedom working alongside the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Also, on a good note, it is also the birthday of Les Brown, the motivational speaker, and his twin brother, Wesley. I'm bringing to the stage my co host, and he will share a little more about this exciting month of February, and then we'll go into the show Relationships Becoming You.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Dr. J.R. Thicklin here. And yes, indeed, as we're in the middle of Black History Month, not that anyone chooses a time to pass, but when you think of Reverend Jesse Jackson passing in this month, you cannot deny the fact that he was fierce. He was relentless. You have to understand he was a young man when he was with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. At 26 years old, I believe he was, when Dr. King was assassinated, and he was there with him. But from that point on, it was Jesse Jackson who oftentimes stood up, when he founded PUSH, People United to Serve Humanity, and he continued to push forward. And we have to remember, long before there was a Barack Obama, it was a Jesse Jackson who twice, ran for president and made some real inroads inside of that. And one of my most iconic moments was all the things that he taught us, I am somebody, he stood up in the side of those things. But I will never forget that moment, the night that President Obama was elected in 2008, and seeing Jesse Jackson there in that crowd,
right,
tears streaming down his face, understanding that the dream had been fulfilled. And one thing about it, it came from a place of appreciation and gratitude, not from a place of hating. And I appreciate that, the life and the legacy of Reverend Jesse Jackson, and we'll forever just honor that. And we take the time, continue to celebrate, keep his name in the air as we pray for his family.
yes.
And as you said, we can't forget about our friend, Mr. Motivator himself. On this day, that's right, Mamie Brown, baby boys, right? Both Leslie and Wesley. So Les Brown name is eternal inside of you talk about motivational speaking. So we want to wish both of them, Wesley and Leslie, a happy birthday.
Absolutely, Dr. J. I've had the privilege of representing him for almost 30 years, over 30 years now. Yeah,
Yes.
I was a little baby when I started. But I had the pleasure of working with greatness, and I will forever be grateful for the opportunity that God has allowed me to do that. And
Yes,
the lives that He's transformed over the years are countless. So he's
absolutely.
definitely an icon and a living legend.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, there's so much to talk about tonight, but we have a show that as we're in this month here, month of relationships and love and all those different things. And I pray everyone had a good Valentine's Day weekend, a Valentine's Day, or whatever you celebrate. I tell people that that's the day that quote unquote that nationally people have agreed to, but your Valentine's is your Valentine. Celebrate all the time.
Every day.
Yeah, and every day, and that's very important. But I think that we have something very special tonight to talk about when we talk about relationships becoming you. And I think that what a topic, because all of that is interesting. When people think about relationships, one of the things I say about relationship, a relationship should not be where people come to find themselves. No, it's not a discovery ground. It is, but but it's a place where you bring your whole self. And I think that's the main premise there, is that a relationship is not a place that you go to find yourself, but it's a place where you bring your whole self. And I think if you start with that in mind, it'll definitely help you down the line to to avoid many, if you would, I call a trap and many potholes inside of pursuing this thing we call love.
Absolutely, Dr. J. And basically, what you're saying is come authentically.
Right,
You
right.
have to come into a relationship being authentic. You know, you always send an interpretation of who you want that person to think you are as it
Yes.
relates to that relationship that you're in. And I think that's what causes a lot of turmoils after the fact in a relationship, because then the real you shows up and that's not who your partner, you know, bargained for. They were like, where did this person come in? But sometimes, you know, you fall in love, and even though that person, the interpretation that you thought was authentic isn't, you're so vested in it that you try to, ride the wave and hoping it'll smooth out and you can come into some common ground, but that's not always the case. So this is real talk. We have to bring our real authentic self to every relationship that we embark upon, because it's not fair to that other person to get an interpretation and then find out that you're fake at the end of the day after all this time has been spent.
Yeah, and the other side of that is this: it's about really being honest with yourself. See, sometimes it's not a matter of totally being dishonest with the other person, but it's a matter of you not being honest with yourself. Because what I believe is this: is that we have to have wholeness before togetherness. We have to be whole before the togetherness. And I think that too often people can approach relationship looking for a rescue, looking to for someone to accept them, looking for someone to complete them, uh, looking for someone to come and just make it all better. You know, looking for someone sometime to fix what is broken. And
Hmm.
so that's not fair, because you come in from a deficit uh, point of view. You come in a deficit. And so as you enter that deficit, oftentimes you're trying to do everything to gain that person's validation. You're trying to do everything to gain that person's approval. You're trying to do those things, and you can find yourself performing, right? Rather than being. And that's how things eventually get discovered, because you're not being your authentic self, because you haven't dealt with your authentic self. And
Wow.
so now you find yourself performing in order to be approved, performing to be accepted, performing to be validated. And that runs out after a while, because the fact you have to deal with your identity, because your identity has to has to come before your performance. Your identity over performance is what I'm saying, because your identity is everything. You can't change your identity. You are who you are, and you have to live that way. Identity over performance. And if you don't do that, you'll find yourself basically existing, performing, but you're not being. And that person and eventually that stuff that begins to suffocate you, because all of a sudden you realize that real you is trying to get out. So you still don't know whether or not this individual feel a certain way about you or not, because of the fact what they've seen is really not you. What they've
Mm.
seen is a performance.
Well, Dr. J, when you enter into a relationship with someone, one of the things I know to be true is there are going to be different situations that will cause you to change.
Sure.
Because when you love an individual and you know their expectations of you are a certain way, and because you love them, you want to please them, you will go through a transition where you're willing to adapt, and that adaptation won't be hard because you have the heart for that person, that heart for that situation to make it work, and you be comfortable in it. So you are introduced to a new level of you didn't know existed, because we're forever learning, whether you in business or relationship. We're
Yeah.
always learning, always evolving. But what is it that you're evolving to will be the question.
Yeah, that's a real good point that you make there inside of it. I think my point is the fact that when one enters in, You know, so often when I listen to stories, and the ladies, I'm not getting on you, it's just that I hear your stories a lot. I've been a listening ear to many. And so what I hear is almost like waiting on someone to come rescue them, waiting on
Mm.
somebody, that person to go come and
The
change
knight in
everything
shining
around.
armor.
Right. And the thing about what you have to understand is that, you have to work on yourself being whole. You have to work on yourself being, because it is what we see oftentimes play out in a lot of what we call celebrity relationships. And when I say celebrity relationships, I'm not just talking about, the mega stallions and, and all these other folks like that. I'm talking about people even in the church. Let me go there for a while. That we begin to play these roles, right? We play these roles that have been put in our minds. So we start putting on these performance and these airs, because what has been told to us is this is what a power couple look like, and this is what this looked like, and people perform, and that's not even a real you. You don't even really like them that much. You just kind of like the attention you get. You really don't even care that much, but you like that, and so we play into these roles. So we live into these roles and this performance that we have, and the performance is greater than the relationship, the performance, but they're not living. And that's why you see these explosive things happen, because they've been in performance mode. That doesn't mean that people don't have difficulty and challenges, but the difficulties and challenges are harder to overcome when you have found yourself trying to fit a persona rather than being who you are. Because
Absolutely.
we learn, and that's very important inside of that. So becoming you, yeah, I agree with you. I think that people should grow. I think people should grow. Anytime you start nurturing and nourishing something, it creates that growth, right? It creates that growth inside of an individual. So that's what's so greatly important.
In biblically, when you join together in marriage, they always talk about the two becoming one.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And here you are trying to become one and becoming you in this oneness.
Exactly.
So, what is that actually going to look like? You becoming one in this oneness, being
Mm-hmm.
whole, being fulfilled. And, unfortunately, a lot of people, when they're in this situation, they deem it as a smothering situation,
Mm-hmm.
because they're no longer free. And I find, you talk about women, but I find even talking to some of my girlfriends, sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
they're not really prepared for what that looks like for somebody
Right.
in their space, especially when they've been alone for so long, and then
Yeah.
having to share that. And, when you've had to be, um, you got to think. I always had to think ahead of the next move, but then having someone that covers me when
Right.
I don't want to think about the next move can
Right.
be altogether wonderful as well. So it depends on what it is that you are looking for. What do you want out of the relationship? And how does that fit into your framework of you moving forward and living a productive life in this relationship? What does that look like? What is that going to feel like to you? Does it feel like you're being imprisoned, or do you feel that you have liberty to express yourself without having to worry about what opinion that person will have of you?
When you say that person, are we talking about the partner? Are we
The
talking about
partner.
others?
The
Yeah.
partner will have
And
of you,
that,
because sometimes, like I said, you can say they can share what they want with you and their expectations, and if you're not willing to abide with what they want, there is some compromising that has to go on. So are you willing to compromise and still be free?
I think so much of that comes with the fact of showing up your complete self, right? Showing up, being willing to show the wounds. I'm not saying you walk up the first day you meet someone and say, "Hey, here go all my wounds." No, no, that's not what I'm saying. But I think that you have to have a place where you can own your wounds, you can show your wounds, and not try to avoid that, because all of that makes for the relationship. If I know you're wounded, and if my heart is right, then I'm going to do what I need to do to what? To protect you, to nurture that. I don't want to infect or aggravate that wounded area of your life. So guess what? In order for us to really authentically move, we have to establish boundaries. We have to have boundaries, even emotionally. There are certain things, if I know that it triggers you, then guess what? Then I know better. My maturity says then I don't say those things, neither do I do those things that I know it's going to cause a trigger. It doesn't give me the right to say, well, just get over it. That wouldn't mean, no, that's not what you do. But what you do understand is this, is that I have to nurture. I understand that part of who you are. Because to your point, every relationship ought to evolve. It ought to evolve over time. It ought to evolve as we even get to know each other better, as we even encounter things. Think about it. Life, we know who we are as life presents itself to us. Our thing is, how do we stay prepared for the next thing that life brings? That's where those core values and, that your core values come into place. What are the things that we've established in our relationship, right? What are the things that we call non-negotiable? So many times when we hear non-negotiable, people think, oh, no, I'm not going those bunch of rules. No, non-negotiable say, no, these are the things that we simply not going to tolerate.
Right.
They're the thing that, and we have agreed that these are the things that we're just not going to tolerate. We're not going to dibble dabble in. We're not going to allow to be a part of this, because the fact it's important that in order for us to become who we are. And it's the reason why when we have weddings, and I often say this when I perform wedding ceremony, you got to understand the wedding ceremony is for the people to witness, but the marriage is yours.
Yes.
The people don't go into the marriage with you. They celebrate at the wedding with you. The marriage is that place where the evolution is going to take place, where we're going to become even more as we evolve. Because until we spend time, until we experience those seasons, right? Listen, sometimes we've experienced nothing but a spring or a summer. And so we kind of like, oh boy, everything is wonderful and everything. But until we have faced some winters, some storms. Now, when I say that, it doesn't necessarily mean that you guys are at each other's throat. I'm just simply saying what life throws at you. When life throws things at you, when unexpected illnesses come, unexpected sickness come, something come from out of left field. The fact that now I've got to deal with more than I thought I had to deal with. Oh God, your children are always this needy? Oh, no, what about your ex-wife? She can't stop calling. And so when you start facing those things there, what have you fortified inside of that relationship that you're able to withstand those type things there? That is what defines us. It goes back to a quote by Dr. King: a measure of a man is not proven in the time of convenience and comfort, but rather during the time of challenges and controversy. And so that's what we mean by that. And so if you don't show up in your authenticity and be whole, then I don't even know how to handle you. You don't even know how to handle me, right? I don't know what your capacity is, because what you're showing me is not you. What you're showing me is what you think I want you to be. But become who you're going to become, because the fact you start off being who you are. And Absolutely. We know what we're working with. I know what we're working with. I know it's almost like the fact, and it may be a simple example. My wife is short. Y'all almost about the same height and everything like that. Well, it's funny. Sometimes sometimes I may walk in the kitchen, right? And she's there's something in that cabinet up there that she's trying to get. Of course, I could reach up there and get it for her, right? Because the fact her height, she's vertically challenged. We'll put it that way there. But you know what? Before she met me, you know what she did? And we'll still do it now if I'm not there. She's got a step stool. She's got this little step stool that she steps up on, and it allows her to get to where she is inside of relationships and things. Oh God, I didn't know she's actually watching. She put an emoji over there. Okay. So and so what happens is this: is that inside of a marriage or a relationship is simple as this. When I understand you, when I understand your limitations or your challenges, whether they be temporary or they be ongoing, whether they be sporadic or whether they be chronic, guess what? I, as your partner, can adjust. I can do those things to help make that which is not complete. I can come strengthening that part of you. And that's the thing about it. You know, it was a song that was sung, Lean on Me. When you're not strong, I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on. That's more than just a good sound. That's a powerful message inside of that. And the thing about it, when we don't come authentic, we don't we don't give that other person really the authentic permission to truly
Yeah, you
live.
don't get the permission for them to be themselves because you
Exactly.
want to walk on eggshells. And you brought up several different things, and I can relate to when a partner is ill or going through physically in their bodies because I'm experiencing that right now with my husband. And I can tell you that it is a trying thing to watch someone you love suffering and pain, and when especially when they're such a wonderful person. But
Absolutely.
I fell in love with the total man, not a
Exactly.
partial man. So even though he's going through these infractions in his body, I still love him the same. And I
Exactly.
appreciate him even more so because the fight he has is for me.
Yes.
the
Exactly.
the stability he's trying to fight for is for me, so I appreciate and celebrate him even more. And even when it comes to blended families, you brought that up too.
Right.
Well, there should be boundaries in every
Right.
relationship. Boundaries as it relates to the children, boundaries as it relates to the ex-wife. Everything is disconnected because you forgetting all and cleave to your wow, cleave to that spouse, because there
Yeah.
is a journey that
Yeah.
has to be forged, that you forged together. That time was past, so now you got to move on into the newness to see what goes on in your twilight years, because after all, and when you are a certain age, this is what you look forward to, someone you can be at peace with and they
Wow.
at peace with you. So, adversity introduces you to yourself.
Yes.
Just like love introduces you to yourself, because you find out that you have the capacity to love and do more than you ever thought you could imagine because you've never been there before. So, yes, you will evolve. You will expand your emotions, you will expand your
Yeah.
thinking to include someone into your life space and trust them with your heart. See, a lot of times when we're in situations where we're in a relationship, because we're afraid of the exposure of who we are, that person may not love us or accept us for
Right.
who we really are, we downplay ourselves instead of being authentic. Anita Hicks, one of my motivational speakers, she talks about authentically you. What does that look like, authentically you? But you said at the top of the show, a lot of people don't know who they are, so they can't be authentic. So they become everybody's chameleon, not just their partners, but everybody around them. They become chameleons to adapt to their, and then till they can't adapt no more and they explode. Then they have mental breakdowns.
Yeah, I'm looking at one of our viewers that Derek says, and he speaks as a point. He said, "You're sharing a powerful conversation, which reminds me of a book my mother had. Uh, I am okay. You're okay. The first place I find clarity is to love myself and know why. That gives me a framework how I see life. Learning to love myself through my imperfections. Wow, allows me the chance to see value in someone else. I look for the next positive. That is a mouthful.
Oh, that is powerful right there.
That
Thank you, Derek,
that
for sharing that. I
there that that
appreciate
that
you.
that says a whole lot right there
Yes.
because that's the good
And it's a
starting point.
man.
Exactly. And I get really excited when I see men and brothers come to these type of revelation and these type of things because the fact we uh okay, I don't know if you see that other remark after that, but when men come to this conclusion, that they have done a lot of inner searching. That they've done a lot because they and oftentimes are trans. they are definitely working against the norm, what culture says, and they're willing to go on the limb to find out for themselves. Uh, okay, short in
Thank you
stature,
so
mighty in
much,
power.
Wendy. I appreciate you, dear.
It's that. So, all these things are important. And the thing about it is this: we have to understand boundaries are important in any relationship.
Any
And
relationship, there has to be boundaries.
right,
Boundaries with those around you, rather it be
right,
family, children, friends, they got to be boundaries. And also boundaries in the relationship. You can't go this far with me because this will cause me to set off. So there are boundaries that have to be set in that situation too. And me being a survivor of domestic violence, I, shared my story with my husband before we got married, and he embraced it, and he held me close, and he said, "You won't have to worry about that with me." And he has guarded and protected me with that, and he won't let anybody else raise their voice to me to where I feel intimidated. So
right.
there has to be boundaries. You can't talk to me any kind of way, and your actions, you can't go like this if we and you do like that, that may cause me to go back like that. There are boundaries.
It is, and I think that we have to look at boundaries. There are boundaries that happens within the relationship couple. Then there are boundaries that you have to establish even within yourself. Some people look at boundaries because as rejection.
Mm,
Boundaries are not rejection. So many people, I would say, they lose themselves because they do fear being perceived as being selfish. It is not selfish, it is protection. Boundaries, if you're going to become you, this is what boundaries says. Boundaries says this: you have to learn to say no when necessary.
mm,
There are times you say no when necessary, right? Boundaries says this: how do I express my discomfort respectfully? Because boundaries don't mean that you're in prison either. How can I express myself respectfully? The other part of that is not only how we have respect ourselves respectfully, but we understand that disagreement does not mean disrespecting. Disagreement does not give us permission to dismiss the
mm,
individual. And so we have to grow inside of it. So our boundaries are there, expressing our discomfort once again, respectfully. Well, I'm not good with that. Well, I don't, that doesn't make me feel very comfortable. Uh, is there another way to do this? Having those conversations are so important. And I think when people understand becoming you, you don't, you know, becoming you is important. But in becoming you, you have to understand you're sharing you with another. And how do you coexist in that space with that other individual? And that is why, once again, the one flesh relationship and the two become what? One.
wow.
When the pronouncement of the wedding happened, they generally, I now present to you Mr. and Mrs. And they go that route. Because the two become one. And the reality is, to understand what it says, the two what? Become one.
Mhm.
It's not a magic formula that happens at the altar. Ding, we're one. No. What happens is the two become one. Because over the period of time, those two individual personalities, two individual habits, two individual life begin to come and they merge and they develop a way to become one. How do we stand? That's how we establish what? Values. We establish values. We always talk about having a vision for your marriage, but what are the values? What are our core values? What are the things that we stand on? And see, when you develop those things, and those things really should come from scripture, but how we apply them depends on the two of you. As far as temperament, is it hard for us to say no to your people? Is it hard for you to say no? We stand on this. These are certain boundaries. And so it doesn't make you weak when you may say, well, I need to talk to my husband about this. Well, go on, let me borrow $500. Well, no, I have to talk to my wife about that.
Right.
Even if we've established that certain things, we're going to do, certain things that we've given certain liberties to, even amongst each other. You may decide, okay, if either of us going to make a purchase above X amount of dollars, we confer with the other before we just go and buy.
Exactly. Yeah,
But
and finances is one of the hardest things
yeah,
to make work in a relationship because they're often secrets when it comes to money.
oh
Um,
man, that you talking the last frontier. That's always right, because hold up, I really don't want you to know that I do have a little bit over here that I'm not telling you about, right? Or I want to be able to control that. And the thing
and
about it,
listen here, I'm
mhm,
one for telling women have a little stash.
I know you are.
You got to have a little stash because, I know growing up, my family didn't have much. My grandmother didn't have much, but she could always reach in there and pull out a dollar bill. Didn't have the job, and so just a little reader. All my grandmothers were entrepreneurs. They knew how to generate and make money. So
Exactly.
I'm naturally an entrepreneur. So we always need to have, because guess what? The woman is the stabilizer of the home. The woman is
Hmm.
also the one that makes sure there's food in there to eat when that man comes home. So she got to have resources to do that. If you want her to be like them tricks in the street, she got to be able to buy an outfit and look every now and then like one. So she got to have a little stash. So I'm saying,
Oh,
ladies, have a stash, but not to put it away for your escape route so that you can live free and wild, but so that you can help protect the family as the stabilizer of that home. And Dr.
yeah,
J,
yeah.
that's all I
And
got to
that's
say. And that's all I got to say about that.
and I got, and that's not a prison, because everybody comes into the relationship, you know. Hopefully, everybody comes into a relationship with something, right? It's a matter of how do we disclose that? Am I hiding, or am I not just sharing? Am I being forthright, or am I not? And those things are important, because one thing about it, any relationship, growth is required. It's not optional. So sometimes we have to grow in learning how to even share and disclose. That's why trust is so important. With time, and we grow comfortable together, we trust each other. And the more we trust each other, we're willing to ask ourselves the hard question. Ask each other, where, in what areas am I immature?
Yes.
And what areas I need to improve on things? And what areas? And I can safely ask you that without thinking that you're trying to put me down.
Absolutely. This has been a powerful show, Dr. J. And I hope
Yes,
that our viewers will join us again next week. And if you have any
yes,
questions or comments, please share them. Visit the YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe to Hot Topics from the Soul. And we will be back next week. And here is the information so you won't get it mixed up. Subscribe YouTube Hot Topics from the Soul. Until next time.
Hot topics from the soul. Hot topics from the soul.